What's going on YouTube? I think you guys can hear me now. GZTV back with another video. In this video we are going to be talking about the 5th episode of Ozark, Ruling Days. And yeah, that is kind of funny that when I put my camera down it looks like it's a part of my bed. I kind of want to do that again because it's kind of cool looking. Oh, that's fine. We can get into the episode. I just kind of review the episodes as we go. And we're on the 5th one. This one's got a lot of faith-centered stuff on there, so that's kind of cool, I guess. Man cannot tame what God wishes to be wild, which is a Jacob Snow quote, who's going to be a big antagonist in the series. So, yeah. Marty is trying to tame a wild part of this country to save his family and his life. Will it get him killed? The center of the first season of Ozark focuses on this question, setting up a number of potential murderers and victims in Marty's circle. One of the men who would be alive if Marty had never driven south is Bobby Dean, whose body washes up under the bird's dock. So that's pretty much where the episode starts. They walk outside and they see that Bobby Dean's body is on the shore. What does this mean for the money launderer and his family? Meanwhile, the writers build out some of the character dynamics between new friends like Buddy and Jonah, Charlotte and Wyatt, and Petty and Russ. And there's some really interesting dynamics going there, and they do a really good job developing it for this episode. They're all matches of outsider and local, developing the theme that this is a part of the country that is constantly shifting as travelers come and go. I mean, the Ozarks, not just the Ozarks, but plenty of other places in America are really big tourist attractions, and the show's trying to show, this is kind of the nature, this is kind of the dynamic of places like this. The episode also introduces a crucial Ozark character in Mason Young, who's played by Michael Mosley, who was the preacher that we saw earlier on in the series. I think it was one of the, maybe it was the second or third episode he was in. He was preaching for the boat church, I guess you could call it. The Aqua Church, maybe. Opening with a flashback to the day that changed his life. So yeah, that'll kind of fold in this episode. Walking up on a convenience store robbery gone very wrong, Mason tries to talk down the armed criminal only to get shot in the shoulder. And this is something that really converted him to his faith, and that's kind of what he talks about. Him getting himself probably not in the best situation and causing him to rely on faith, obviously. As he lies on the floor, gasping for air, the shot cut to him floating in the healing waters of the Ozarks, the cross around his neck lying next to his scar. So yeah, obviously it flashes forward. We then cut to Bobby's floating body, which the birds take as kind of a signal, maybe a warning from their enemies. We're not really sure who these people could be. This is what happened to the last guy who owned the Lickety Splits, Martin Bird. I think they left a message. Just in case the message isn't clear, Jacob Snell stops Marty on the road by literally just standing in the middle of it and being intimidating. Peter Mullen is so good at conveying the kind of confidence that comes from a criminal empire, and he does great in this show. All the traffic in the entire state probably stops for him, man. I mean, he is a menacing figure. He tells Marty that he had a working relationship with Bobby Dean that he needs to continue with Marty. It's a local tradition, is kind of what he paints it as, and it's kind of a sick and twisted thing, I guess. Marty merely says, "I don't think my employer would allow it," even though he is his own employer. It's a scene between two smart men, each of whom realizes that the other is going to be a problem. One of them is going to be the problem for the other. Only time will tell. Charlotte gets a little character development here, starting with a flirtatious conversation with the customer at the bar, and then moving to a bit of reconciliation with Wyatt on the dock. And it's really interesting that these two characters reunited. I guess she doesn't really have anyone else to lean on to, and the Langmores are pretty close nearby. So yeah. She's apologetic about Wendy's tossing a possum on the roof and claims everything is even now. Now that her mom did that, she kind of feels like she needs to settle it, While she edges closer to Wyatt, Buddy and Jonah are feeling each other out about their roles in this new situation. Jonah says, "My dad brings businesses back to life," which is an interesting way to describe money laundering and the kind of phrasing that a father uses on their son in the hope he'll repeat it. So, yeah, it sounds better than saying, "Oh, my dad launders money." I'm sure Buddy probably picked up on that, but I don't know. Buddy is trying to figure out more about what Marty does. Jonah is trying to learn how to shoot, so there you go. Those two characters can kind of bond over something, I guess. they can have favors for each other. So around town, Marty has become a major player overnight. You see, the locals think that he's the one who killed Bobby Dean, which has changed his reputation from a quiet bookkeeper to a ruthless criminal. And obviously the cop said it was an overdose, but people around the town still think that Marty did this and possibly killed Bobby Dean when really it was smell, and they poisoned him pretty much. They pretty much made him OD. Forceful OD. Rachel suggests that he stay away from the customers until it blows over, and Marty gets him intel on Snell. He's going to kind of learn who this guy is so he can be careful around him, and he's going to go over to the Lickety Splits because no one really gives a fuck about your reputation over at the Lickety Splits, so he decided he would take himself there and help the business over there. They've lived on that hill forever, and devious things go on that farm. The Riders are making the Snells almost mythic, the kind of long-standing criminal operation that likely exists for generations in the heartland of this country until an outsider destroys it, and Marty's probably hoping to be the person to destroy that, because he doesn't want this person to keep terrorizing people, you know? Cut to the Poppy Kingpins on a walk across their property. Jacob tells Darlene that Marty is more afraid of his boss than the Snells, even though Marty doesn't. I mean, his employer, I guess, is like the drug lord guy. That's a problem. Meanwhile, Darlene tells a brute named Ash, played by Michael Torek, to go do what he needs to do, shotgun in hand, and I think this guy's been in a couple movies. I can't really think what movies he's been in necessarily, but I've seen that guy's face a lot. As if it weren't crowded enough in the Ozarks, Josh Silverberg, played by Ben Rappaport, drops by for a conversation with Wendy, who is sleeping with his father. He doesn't buy the police theory that Gary threw himself from the 80th floor of his high-rise apartment building. He was the happiest he's been in years, Josh tells a nervous Wendy, and that's probably because of his relationship with Wendy, you know? It's crazy, man. Like, he wouldn't just throw himself off the roof for no reason. Someone did this. Someone forced him to jump, someone pushed him, whatever, and he's right. Marty may not be there, and he's clearly nervous about cops sniffing around about who killed Gary, but is there a small part of him that enjoys Wendy's having to figure out a way out of a mess she largely created? I mean, probably. He wants to see what she does in this situation. So, at Lickety Splits, Ruth Langmore is taking control. She has hired new inventory, upsetting some of the longtime strippers at the establishment enough that punches get thrown, and they try to rebel, and Ruth fucking kicks their ass because she's a bad. Ruth doesn't throw that right hook until the dancer mentions her dad, Cade. Cade is some sort of legend that we haven't figured out, even though we're like halfway through the first season. I think eventually we'll figure it out. He's clearly a very sensitive subject for the smartest branch of the Langmore family tree. Even with the violence, Ruth is doing such a great job that Marty later offers her a job to actually manage the place, and that's a really big opportunity for her because obviously her family is living under some unfortunate circumstances. She can manage the place and bring home $1,000 a week, which is really good for her situation. Will this change Ruth's mind about killing Marty? Might she want to join him instead? We don't know. We'll have to watch on. While Marty is getting the lowdown on how dangerous Josh could be, Russ Langmore has been reunited with Agent Petty, who clearly sees this closeted, somewhat fragile man as a way to get to Marty. It's a strategy that never made much sense, but it's unclear exactly how viewers are supposed to feel about Petty, who clearly will use anyone around him to his advantage, and maybe he isn't all that good at his job, you know? Maybe he wants to find a romantic connection, maybe he's not even here for that. Anyway, he fishes and laughs with Russ and then kisses him, even though they must smell so much like raw fish right about them. Obviously, Russ doesn't like this. He comes from like this very trailer park trash family, so obviously he's going to have some homophobia about him, right? Russ punches Petty in the face and calls him a slur before pushing him out of the truck. Later, Russ will come to Petty's motel room drunk and confused. They kind of wrestle and then kiss, which is, it's so uncomfortable. I'm not homophobic, but like, that was uncomfortable. Russ is figuring out who he is in a very unusual way. You know? On the other side of town, Nix covers up the death of Bobby Dean, and the Birds embark on another business endeavor. They go to Mason Young and his wife, Grace, played by Bethany Ann Lind, with a proposition. A physical church that can get them off the water, another place through which the Birds can launder money. Starting another business, that's what they need to do, and they've been thinking about doing construction management for some time, and this is the perfect opportunity. Think about their growing empire. It's all about using basic human needs like leisure with the blue cat, sex at lickety splits, shelter at Dermody Realty, and now religion to feed a massive drug operation. I mean, they're covering every part of a civilization, really. I mean, maybe not like fast food or anything, but yeah. At one point, Marty says this whole town's like a big fucking game of telephone, and the interconnectivity in the community resonated through this season more than later ones, because we're really trying to like establish what this city, the Ozarks, is. After a bit of awkward Wyatt flirtation with Charlotte, the episode cuts to the other bird child about to have a terrifying day. Ash, the Snell's muscle, is sneaking around the house taking pictures when Jonah appears with a gun. As Ash reveals he carries a knife, a car pulls up to pick up Jonah, averting tragedy. If his parents weren't there, Jonah probably would have died here. That would have been super unfortunate. Jonah hides his gun in the garage and leaves Ash to sneak around in private. He's like, okay, I mean, you can take pictures. I don't really give a fuck. It's not my operation. You're not going to kill a kid either. The final scenes have a sense of inevitable doom, whether it's Russ finding happiness with Petty, or Rachel smiling at the fireworks with Marty, or even Mason delivering a sermon. It's all tinged with foreboding. It's so clear that something will go wrong for all these happy people. Like, it seems almost too utopian to not go wrong. And Mason's role becomes clearer as the final scene reveals that the Snells have been using Mason's flock on the lake as a supply chain, handing off drugs through hymnals on the water, and I'm not really sure how you wouldn't get caught from doing that. But it's a pretty cool little thing they include. Faith and addiction wrapped up in one volume, and the birds want to ruin all of this wild behavior. Wow, man. It's a pretty good episode, man. I mean, we're really setting up for some storylines here. This is the mid-season finale, and obviously other shows kind of ramp it up a little bit in the action for stuff like this. But I think it's perfectly acceptable that this show would kind of take this direction. I don't really mind it at all. But yeah, I'm going to have to see how the season kind of wraps up. Should be really interesting. Well, not how the show wraps up, how the season wraps up, because that's what we're mainly focused on. Like, how big of a problem are the Snells going to become, because they already have someone snooping through their belongings. So, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I am out. I have another video coming out today, the Tizo Touchdown. Tizo Touchdown dropped an album. I'm going to be editing a reaction and review video, getting that out for you guys.